Hello everyone, this is part 7 of What If Naruto Was Adopted by Kakashi, and I hope you guys enjoy this video and to like, to subscribe, and check out the playlist, to see more comment down below. Now let's start the intro.
They call me a god. They call me a god. They call me a god.
It was early morning but Naruto had been up for an hour anyway. It was still quiet but that would soon change. For the past few days he had been training with his dad and now he knew he could pass that test now for sure with his secret weapon that he had. It was also thanks to this secret weapon that would allow him to pull off the biggest prank of all time that this entire village would have seen in history. He didn't even want to think how long it would have taken him without the new jutsu. It would have taken him all night to do instead of 15 minutes tops. Naruto had gained several reputations over the years but one that he was most prideful of was that of a prankster like no other. He really had a taste for it and it didn't help that his father had a trickster side to him as well. Like the time he slipped firecrackers into Guy's vest, or the time his dad placed a stuffed life-sized fake replica of himself during a meeting that he skipped out on. Apparently it took 5 minutes after the meeting for people to realize it wasn't him since it was holding a copy of one of his famous books in front of the face. But with his life of a ninja ahead of him, Naruto knew that he would have to put away the pranks for a while, maybe even for a long time since he would be too busy for it. But if that was the case then he wanted to go out with a bang with the biggest one in history. Everyone would remember this day and it would be something that would be talked about for generations. He grinned to himself as he added the last bit of paint and was wondering how long before the first ninja showed up to get the one responsible for it. It turns out he didn't have to wait long after the sun rose when people got up and saw what he had done. Anko was one such person. She had gotten up and went right for her morning coffee. She was not a morning person and liked to sleep in. She yawned as she waited for the coffee to get ready, trying not to fall asleep at her kitchen table. When she finally had her cup she walked past one of her windows but then froze. Her sleep-fogged mind could have swore what she had just seen outside of her window couldn't have been real. She took a quick step back, took a look and spit out her coffee out the window. What the hell? She yelled out, seeing the Hokage monument all painted up. There were childish marks all over it in various paints. It took her only a moment to realize who had the balls to pull something like that off and she just started to laugh her ass off. She literally fell on her ass laughing and holding her stomach as she spilled her coffee, but she didn't care, she was awake now. Oh god, that kid is too much. I swear if the kid lives I'll buy him a drink when he gets to be the right age, she laughed to herself. She wasn't the only one to see it. Hinata was still asleep when Hanabi burst into her room. Hinata, you have to see it. See what? Hinata muttered, rubbing her eyes. Someone painted on the Hokage faces. Hanabi told her and Hinata wasn't sure she had heard her younger sister correctly. She quickly put on a robe and ran out with her sister where her father, uncle, cousin and other members of the family were standing outside staring at the paint all over the most prized monument of the entire village, something that gave tribute to the greatest leaders, a sense of pride, and it was all painted over by childish scribbles. Who on earth would do such a thing? Hiashi asked out loud. His twin brother smirked as an idea came to him. Ask yourself this, brother. What masked person do we know that has a reputation for pranks and would have the gall to do something like this? Hiashi sighed and pinched the bridge of his nose. He should have known this had Naruto's flair all over it. He was surprised that boy would pull something like this off. He would assume the boy had at least some respect for adults and his elders, but then again, he did keep calling the Hokage old man all the time and he was sure he purposely mistook him and his brother all the time on purpose. Neji signed and hung his head. He wasn't sure if he should be impressed that Naruto pulled this off or turn him in if he saw him. Hanabi and Hinata didn't know what to think. Although it was pretty funny, they both knew that Naruto would be in so much trouble when they caught up to him. I wonder if they caught him yet. Hanabi voiced as Hinata looked worried and bit her lip. Their uncle was curious and activated his bloodline and scanned the area. He had a small smile on his face. Well, that is certainly surprising. Again. He's being chased by at least a dozen Jonins and Chunins. Hiashi activated his eyes as well and saw them chasing Naruto, and the boy seemed to be having fun giving him the runaround. Then he noticed something else. They weren't chasing just one Naruto. He looked closer and his head snapped back as he realized what he was seeing. It should have been impossible, but there was one thing he had learned with Naruto and it was that nothing seemed impossible for the boy. I can't believe he's using that technique, he said as his twin nodded his head, seeing exactly the same thing. That boy is full of surprises. Yes. Certainly makes things interesting, doesn't it, brother? He said, smiling as Neji looked confused at his father, wondering just what was going on here. He tried his own eyes, but he didn't see the big deal, at least at first, until he noticed it too. Hanabi and Hinata didn't have the range just yet to see what was going on, but they could tell that something that Naruto was doing had their attention. Others were already waking up to the chaos that would be talked about for years to come. Ino had walked out of her home and stopped dead at the sight, her jaw dropping. Sakura was mirroring this from her window and wondered what possessed Naruto to do some of this stuff sometimes. Although she would never admit it, it was kind of funny. Shino just raised an eyebrow, but beneath his coat he was smirking. Choji nearly choked on his food when he saw it, and Shikamaru had been cloud watching. He had took one look, said how troublesome it was, and just went back to his clouds trying to drown out the noises. Kiba was of course laughing his ass off at this. He couldn't believe Naruto did that, but he had to admit it was the ultimate prank. Sasuke had been on a morning jog until he saw all of this. He palmed his face, wondering why Naruto had to be such an idiot at times. Although that was pretty impressive but totally useless. If Naruto put all that effort into his training, he could have been a great ninja. Sasuke just shook his head and started off on his run. After several hours, Naruto had finally been caught. By all people, his teacher and boy Iruka was pissed at him. Naruto had to clean the entire mountain up before school, and it took a while since he didn't want to ruin the surprise. Thankfully, he used a water-based paint, figuring this might happen. He tried this once before with real paint and had to wash that off, and it took forever, and that had just been a wall. This was a mountainside. So by the time Naruto got to school, he was already tired and his hands ached, but he was smiling under his mask. He could already see many of the people talking about him, but he didn't care. He liked any attention, and this was a day that no one would forget. There he is. Naruto jumped at the sound of a pissed-off Ino and looked to see her storming towards him with her friends in tow. Oh hey there, Ino-chan, how are things? He asked innocently. Don't you Ino-chan me Buster, what the hell were you thinking doing that? You want to get in trouble on the last day of school? Ino said, punching him in the arm. He winced from the blow. It was thanks to Ino and sometimes Sakura that he learned that just because someone was a girl didn't mean they didn't punch hard. Naruto, honestly, that was a bit overboard. Sakura chided him. She really didn't want to see him kicked out before he made ninja. All that hard work would be for nothing, and she didn't want to see him fail. Personally, I think it was funny as hell. Kiba laughed and then got a fist to the top of his skull by Ino and Sakura. Don't encourage him. Both girls yelled out as he fell to the ground holding his skull. Akamaru whimpered at his heels, not going to bark at the girls, as he was smart enough to know that when they got like this, it wasn't smart to get in their way. Hey, I just wanted to go out with a bang as a ninja. I won't be able to do anything like that anymore, Naruto tried to explain. Besides, I cleaned it all up. That's not the point, Naruto. You could have been seriously punished, Sakura told him. He rubbed the back of his head. Yeah, okay, I'm sorry, but still it was pretty cool. That earned him a smack to the head as he was now on the ground like Kiba, as both Ino and Sakura walked into the school angry, leaving the others behind. Shino didn't say anything. He just shook his head and sighed as he walked into the school. Sometimes his friends should learn when to keep quiet. Naruto eventually made his way inside, rubbing his head. He saw Ino arguing with a few girls on who would sit next to Sasuke again. He should have seen that happen, and the fact a few girls were giggling at him and waving him over to their seats as well. He sweat dropped at this. He gave a weak wave back and looked to see that there was a chair with Hinata and Sakura, which he was thankful for. He was safe with them from the fangirls. He didn't know how Sasuke could handle the mob that followed him around, since Naruto only had half the number. Apparently being the bad boy, as well as totally mysterious, was all some girls needed. He sighed seeing Sasuke enter the front of the class and walk up to him. Naruto smiled at his rival, got up closer. Hey Sasuke, did you see my greatest prank of all time? Why must you waste your time with such idiotic things? He sighed and shook his head. How a boy like him got to be the only one that could challenge him was beyond the Avengers' understanding. You're just jealous that I did something that you could never do. Naruto waved it off, throwing in his too cool attitude of his father in there. It didn't work as well on Sasuke like it did on Guy, but it usually got some kind of annoyed reaction out of the young Uchiha. What both boys didn't notice, however, was that the argument with the girls got to the point when shoving started to happen, and one unfortunate girl next to Ino had been pushed by another girl and fell backwards. That wasn't so terrible for her as he slammed into Naruto's back, but this also had a domino effect as Naruto pitched forward and face first into Sasuke as they landed on the ground. In that moment it was dead silence as the entire class watched as Naruto and Sasuke's faces were pushed together. Jaws were dropped everywhere, some of the girls looked like they wanted to cry from not being the first one the boys kissed, although a couple were getting nosebleeds as their inner Yoi fangirl side went into overload. Naruto jumped off the boy as both started to nearly retch. "Oh god, I knew it, I knew you were gay. I've been violated by the Uchiha." Naruto yelled out, trying to spike and still keep his mask on, had never been so glad to wear a mask in his life as it helped to keep the feeling of that violation, as he refused to call it a kiss. He knew he would be having nightmares about this for a long time, and from the way Kiba was laughing his ass off he would never hear the end of this. "Me. I'm the one who was violated, you perverted masked idiot." Sasuke shot back. "You're the one that slammed into me and was on top. Oh hell no, I bet you planned that whole thing. Why else have you turned down every girl in school?" "Because I don't like any of these girls, you idiot. I want to rebuild my clan, but you think I'll just choose anyone. I'm an Uchiha and I have standards to hold up to, unlike you, and since when have you ever been on a date in your life?" Naruto didn't like the argument being thrown back into his face. "Oh yeah, well I'd kiss any girl here if I wanted to, if that would prove I'm not gay. What about you?" At this point the girls were all up asking to be the one to help prove to the boys that they weren't gay to the other boy. Sure, they wouldn't have the first ever kiss, but they would want to have the first kiss they got from a girl. Although Sasuke's words had hurt a bit and deflated several daydreams of winning over the Uchiha's heart, the chance to kiss the boy was just too good to pass up. Also, many wanted to see what Naruto's face looked like, as well as that was one of the biggest mysteries in the school. Even Shino's face was seen from time to time with the exception of his eyes. Thankfully that was when Iruka and Mizuki walked in. The two teachers quickly got their class back into order, although Naruto and Sasuke kept giving each other death glares. Iruka sighed, wishing it would be a quick day. After the years his group would finally graduate and he was looking forward to the break before the next school course started up. The tests were simple enough. Written exam for their final marks to test their theory knowledge, then it was on to the practical stuff. He started off the tests and then it was just a waiting game. He wasn't surprised when Sakura was the first one done, of course. Mizuki, however, even though he kept a smile on, he secretly detested this village. His old master Orochimaru had left him behind as he had taken Anko of all people all those years ago. He still was angry that he had chosen her over him, and then she returns with no memory and that cursed seal and techniques. The woman didn't even use the gift that Orochimaru had given her, and she was a special Jonin while she was stuck in the Chunin ranks. He deserved more, to be promoted out of this school, but his skills and abilities were always overlooked. Here he was teaching a bunch of brats when the real ninjas got to go on missions and prove their strength to the world. Strength is what mattered in this world, and knowledge of jutsus, that was what he learned from his sensei, and he took it to heart. But he was denied the skills that Jonin got when they reached that level and could read the Forbidden Scroll for more powerful techniques and moves. He looked at the brats and internally he hated them, especially a certain few. There was the Uchiha boy who was given everything just because of what family he was born into. He was the last and his clan was crushed and gone, and yet they still treated him like a prince. He never liked that clan. Just because they were a founding member of the village, they had been able to act too tough and push others around. Then there were the Hyuga clan who were just as arrogant, and yet the little girl here was so weak it was pathetic. He knew though that she would eventually lead her clan just because of whose daughter she was, and it made him angry. She was guaranteed to go far just because of that as well, and because he was not from any clan he was overlooked. It seemed that as long as you were part of a clan, the more things went your way and the more you were given. He knew it was rare for anyone else outside of a clan to get to Jonin rank. There was Kurenai, who was recently promoted from Chunin just because of her clan. Then there was the Hokage's chain-smoking son as well. Then he looked at the Yamanaka, Nara and Akamaki children and how their parents were heads of their own small clans. But there was another boy that stood out for him as well, and that was Naruto Hatake. The Hatake name had been put into disgrace, and yet Kakashi had pulled it out of the mud. Not a clan, but he was well respected, but only because of that damn eye he had. That was the only reason he made it so far in the village. The man was a lazy, perverted idiot, and yet he was considered one of the best only because of that stupid eye, and there was his son, as well, sitting there writing his test. After the failed Hyuga kidnapping incident, many knew that Naruto held the nine-tailed fox inside of him, and even though Mizuki knew that the boy was not the demon, he had been close enough to sense that power that night. He knew that the boy was given a great power inside of him, and yet he did nothing with it. Yet another person to get a gift, and why did the fourth pick him of all people? Mizuki hated how the village never respected him or gave him what he had earned, but being stuck at this school he couldn't gain any missions and he had asked to be put elsewhere, but that stupid old man of a Hokage had said he was more valuable here. Mizuki knew that the Hokage was just putting him aside just because he had no name to throw around. The children had finished their testing and it was time for the one-on-one. Iruka told the children to go outside and wait. He couldn't understand why his old friend was such a fool. The man actually wanted to stay in his place, but then again Iruka wasn't as good a ninja as he was, never had been in his opinion, but he wasn't from some noble clan, so that was why he had stayed friends with him, even if Mizuki did think the man was naive. Outside the children waited for their tests. Many were worried about this since this was the final test, the one that would prove them worthy to be ninjas, something they all had worked years to do. For Hinata, she was biting her lower lip in worry. She didn't want to fail and disappoint her family, but she was so nervous and thought that she might screw things up. She was so absorbed that she didn't notice someone walking up behind her until she felt a gentle hand on her shoulder. "Hey Hinata-chan, you okay?" Naruto asked, seeing how nervous she was. "Oh, NN Naruto-kun, I'm just a little nervous, I don't want to fail." "Hey, there's no way you'd fail, you're a great ninja and I know you can do this, so don't worry because I'm behind you, I know for a fact that you'll blow this test out of the water." He smiled behind his mask at her and she felt her heart beat faster thanks to his words. Hearing those kinds of words out of his mouth to her made her feel so warm inside and she didn't want to disappoint him. She gave him a weak smile and nodded her head, feeling more confident. Her name was called after Ino came out of the room smiling brightly as she was carrying her own forehead protector. Naruto watched Hinata go with a smile and she looked back once and he nodded to her. She gave him a small smile back and walked into the room. Naruto waited and waited and it was killing him inside. He was so eager to take this test and be a real ninja. He would be one step closer to being Hokage with this and he would make his dad proud of him. Naruto Hatake. Finally. About damn time. Naruto jumped up and went into the room with the two teachers. "Okay Naruto, we want you to perform a transformation jutsu and then perform a clone," Iruka said, and suddenly noticed that look in Naruto's eyes as his hands went to a hand seal that he dreaded. He slammed his hand onto the desk hard and fast. "Naruto, don't even think of using that perverted jutsu you created. Or you're no fun and you seem to have enjoyed it last time I used it," Naruto whined as Iruka blushed at the memory. When Naruto pulled off that naked girl transformation of his, he couldn't have stopped the gusher of blood coming out of his nose if he had known it had been coming. Naruto sighed and went into a simple transformation as there was a puff of smoke and he turned himself into his father Kakashi with his book already out reading it. "Not bad, looks just like him," Mizuki said. "Yes, very good, go ahead and turn back Naruto," Iruka said, but noticed that Kakashi only was still reading the book. Naruto turned back now. "Just a second, I really like this point in the book," the Kakashi fake said, giggling like he usually did. "Naruto," Iruka said in warning and Naruto dispelled it. Iruka sighed and ran a hand through his hair. He swore Naruto was going to make him grow old before his time. "Now perform the clone Naruto." Can it be any type of clone?" "Any type?" Mizuki asked the boy. "Yeah, see, I have a problem. I can't perform a normal one cause my body has too much chakra, but my dad taught me a really cool one that's even better." Iruka thought it over. There really was no rule on what type of clone it had to be. "Okay Naruto, just make 3 clones and that will be fine." "Alright." Naruto jumped up and went into the usual hand seals for a typical clone, only the last seal was different as it ended in a cross sign. Shadow Clone Jutsu. Both teachers were shocked when Naruto said that, as there were several puffs of smoke and suddenly there were not 3 but 12 shadow clones. Both teachers were shocked that a boy had learned a Jonin level move and seemed to be perfectly fine with no effects. Mizuki had to really try and keep his composure at this. Here he was a chunin being outdone by a boy that wasn't even a ninja. He was taught a move that he had no right on learning and there was only one person that would teach him that. Iruka was torn between how impressed he was with Naruto and furious that Kakashi would teach such a dangerous move to his own son. But Naruto seemed to be fine and so Iruka smiled at him and stood up. "Well, I have to say Naruto, you passed with flying colors." "Yeah." All of the Naruto clones cheered and started to celebrate. Eventually he dispelled the clones and took his forehead protector with pride. He held it in his hands, grinning from ear to ear with this. It wasn't as heavy as he thought, but it was his and he had earned it. He couldn't wait to show it off and quickly tied it to his forehead and looked up at Iruka and smiled behind his mask. Naruto walked out of the classroom and went into the yard to where his friends were. Hey guys, guess what? Naruto, you did it, Sakura said happily, seeing him with his forehead protector. She ran over to him along with the others. Ino and Sakura were the first to hug him, making him blush behind his mask as Kiba slapped him on the back a little too hard for Naruto's liking, but he let it slide. Shino simply nodded his head towards him and Shikamaru gave a small smile as Choji was doing all the talking to him. He noticed Hinata smiling as she was looking down, playing with her fingers with a slight blush on her face. Hey Hinata-chan, isn't this great? He said, walking over to her. Why yes, it is Naruto-kun, I knew you'd do it. She looked up shyly at him, giving him a small smile. He smiled back at her, his eyes closed much like his dad did. Thanks Hinata-chan, that means a lot from you. She blushed deeply at that and her eyes sent to her feet as her cheeks got hot again from blushing even more so. The small group of friends were enjoying themselves, waiting for their parents to show up so they could all show off their new status as genin ninjas of their village. Only one person was watching from a window, and that was Mizuki. He looked down at them, but he didn't feel proud of them. In fact, he was slowly starting to hate them all. He had been pushed to his limits with the Hatake boy learning that move. This village obviously didn't appreciate him at all and had overlooked him for far too long. Maybe it was time to do what he had been thinking of for a while now and join his sensei Orochimaru. He obviously had the right idea leaving this village behind, but his old master would require something of value as proof of his skills and abilities. Slowly looking at the children, a small plan was starting to unfold, and perhaps he could not only gain something of value but ruin some revenge on the clans and those that always had everything given to them on a silver platter as well. Naruto looked about as his friends all had their hitaiatis on various places. He was happy that all his friends were ninjas now and he couldn't wait to show it off to his dad, the two at the ramen stand, Anko, Guy and anyone else he could think of. He was so proud that he was a ninja and he was nearly ready to start jumping around all over the village on the rooftops, shouting his lungs out that he was a genin. Unfortunately, knowing his dad, he was going to be late again, but he was just happy that he passed. He saw his other friends being congratulated by other family and it made him smile under his mask. I see you passed too, Naruto, said a family voice behind him. He quickly turned to see Hinata with her father, uncle and Neji there. Yeah, you got it, Hisashi-san, Naruto said, smiling and scratching the back of his head, although it was actually Hisashi that was speaking to him, and once again he was fighting off the twitch that had been forming for years from Naruto constantly getting the two brothers mixed up. Of course Naruto knew which was which, but he liked to annoy them because railing a Hyuga was so much fun because of how much effort you had to put into it. He swore one of these days he would break through that Hyuga exterior. Naruto, Hinata muttered, knowing her father and uncle hated that game of his. Yes, Hinata-chan? He asked her innocently. Hisashi just gave a low sigh and tried not to get a headache from stress at this point. So did you do well, Naruto? You bet I used my super new jutsu that my dad taught me. I may even beat Sasuke team out of the Genin of the year with it, and it will serve the arrogant bastard right if I did. Naruto said confidently. The Uchiha clan was very powerful, Naruto. Their clan helped to form this village, and as the last he has much to prove, Hisashi said to him, and he couldn't help to add in one more thing. Besides, from what I hear, he was ahead of you in all the written tests, was he not? Naruto face soured at that. He was never very good at the written stuff and Hisashi knew it. It was a small victory for the adult against the boy for once again mixing him up with his twin on purpose. His face had a small twitch again, but this was in the corner of his lips this time as he fought back a small smirk as it would not be dignified. But still he was glad to get a shot in at the boy now and then, just to repay him for all the years he tried to get on the nerves of him and his brother and other Hyugas as well. So Naruto, I take it Kakashi is running late again, Hisashi said to Naruto. Naruto grumbled something about buying his father a watch with preset alarms but just shrugged it off. He was used to his father being late all the time anyway. He knew that his father would be proud of him when he saw him later anyway. So how did you do, Hinata-sama? Neji asked his cousin. She blushed a bit as everyone started to look at her and she looked at the ground nervously playing with her fingers. I did well, Iruka-sensei said. I made 4th highest in the class. Her father frowned a bit as he thought about that. I see, well I am glad that you passed, daughter, although I can see that the Uchiha boy and Naruto would most likely be in the top, but who else did you lose to? Hinata winced as her father used to term lose, as she still couldn't beat her own little sister in sparring matches. She looked disappointed when she said that Sakura managed to get the top marks out of the kunoichi of the class, and she could see that her father was disappointed that she had been beat out by a girl that was not even from any clan and whose family had no known or famous ninja in it. Hinata was left feeling like she had let her father down. Although he never said anything about it, she could tell that he was. She knew that her clan had very high standards, and not making top of the class or even top kunoichi was just another sign of her weakness, and she wished she was better. She tried to train hard, but she could never bring herself to harm her friends or family in spars, and even though she wasn't stupid, she knew that Sakura was brilliant when it came to book smarts. She had beat out all the other girls, which did say something to her, but still being beaten by a non-clan member was something of a black mark against her. There was nothing wrong with coming from no clan, but those that were in clans, many felt that they had to be a bit above the rest, and the Hyuga clan took that to heart, as they always tried to show just how powerful their clan was. Now with the Uchiha clan practically gone, they were the most powerful group in the village, and her showing weakness at this time she knew wasn't a good thing for her family. The elders of the clan still held enough power to place someone more worthy as heir, and she would have to be put into the branch family and have the bird cage seal placed on her like her cousin was forced to have put on him. Hinata hated that seal and wanted the practice stopped, but she had no power in her clan, and if she was removed into the branch, then any hope of freeing her clan from that would be ruined. She needed to prove herself to the elders so she one day could help stop it. "Hey Hinata-chan, you okay?" Naruto asked, seeing her space out in thought. She jerked her attention, her cheeks blushing a bit. "Why yes, I'm fine, Naruto-kun." He looked a bit closer, making her cheeks a bit more brighter at how close he was. Naruto was just looking to see what was wrong with her. "Are you sure you're okay? I mean, you've been getting all red a lot and warm." He pressed a hand to her head to feel if she had a temperature. She froze at the contact and how her whole face was red. Her eyes widened, and before she could say anything she fainted, only this time forward, and hit Naruto in his head with a headbutt. He gave a short outcry as he was hit and fell back, and Hinata, now dazed, fell back as her father caught her. He grimaced at the public display from his daughter and looked to see his brother looking over the dazed Naruto. She really needs to get over that shyness of hers, brother, his, as she stated, seeing that Naruto was okay. Hiyashi nodded his head at that. It was painfully obvious that his daughter fancied the boy, and he guessed it was something that was bound to happen. The two of them had been childhood friends for years, and Hinata was very close to the boy, but being a Hyuga made such a thing difficult as dating outside the clan was a very hard thing to earn. Normally the young couple would go to the head of the household or even to him for approval, and it wasn't easy. Anyone trying to get into the clan had to prove that they were worthy of the Hyuga that they were in a relationship with, but with Hinata the elders would have to take things over to prevent Hiyashi from any favoritism in that matter. He would admit that Naruto had much potential, and the fact this father was a well-known and powerful ninja. It also didn't hurt that Kakashi had been the bane of the Uchiha clan for so long with his Sharingan eye of his. It wasn't spoken about, but many had delighted in the mighty Uchiha bloodline taken and used by another that wasn't of their blood, and had also used it far more effectively than any of their members. After a few minutes of waiting, the two children slowly started to wake up. Hinata was so embarrassed by her actions she could look Naruto in the eye, although he just shrugged it off and made light of it. "Hinata, we should go. I have work to do at the estate," her father told her. "And I should get back to my team. We have a training session in an hour," Neji said as his father nodded, as he had to go with his twin brother. Hinata nodded and then looked to see Naruto sitting on the swing, most likely just waiting to see if his father would show up or not. She didn't like how lonely he looked, as all the others had left with their families, and she bit her lip nervously. "I'm sorry, but may I stay with Naruto-kun until his father shows up?" Hiyashi had a small raise in his eyebrow, but figured he could give his daughter that. After all, he knew that Naruto would see her home safely. He nodded his head to her and she happily ran off to join Naruto, and he stood to watch them, and deep down he was smiling at the two of them. He wished that his wife was alive to see this day, and he knew that he wanted her daughter to be happy and to be with Naruto, and he hoped that dream would come true. But she still needed to get stronger. He had lost his wife, but he didn't want to see his daughters die as well. That would surely kill him inside. He took one last look before turning and walking away. While the two children were together, there was another person who had been watching with interest, as Mizuki was grinning as he thought that he had the perfect opportunity. He had been watching, and seeing two of the children alone was a perfect setup. It also didn't hurt that it was the Hitaki boy and the high and mighty Hyuga girl as well. He had overheard the conversation with the father, and he knew Hinata well enough to judge her physical reaction. She was never very good at hiding how she felt. Also, those two were always together, so this would be even easier to make them both take the fall, as if one went the other would go along to help the other out. He walked over to the two children, putting on his friendly smile that he had been forced to wear all the time since he was forced into being a teacher. The two children looked at him and smiled back, and why wouldn't they? After all, he was one of their teachers, someone that had always been kind and helpful after all. So how are you two doing? Mizuki asked them, and they replied that they were doing good, and then he put on a slightly sadder look. You know, Naruto, Hinata, it's a shame that you two didn't get any higher marks. Naruto, I'm sure your father would have been delighted to learn his son was Genin of the year like he had been, in Hinata, I'm sure your father would have been very proud that you made top kunoichi as well. Both children looked a little discouraged at that, and Naruto looked up at him. You mean I didn't beat Sasuke team? Sorry Naruto, if only you had scored just a little higher in the written test. He saw the effect of that, as Naruto's little rivalry with the Uchiha boy had been a strong one since their very first day together. Although there is a way for you two to earn some extra credit that could put you both over the top. But it's not easy, and I wouldn't offer it unless you both felt you could do it. What is it, Mizuki-sensei? I can do anything, and so can Hinata-chan, just watch us. Naruto jumped up, eager to prove himself better than Sasuke, and he also knew how badly that Hinata wanted to make her father proud. Mizuki looked thoughtful at the two of them for a moment. Well, I could set it up, but it's not easy, and you can even lose marks off your grade after all. But if you both feel you can do this, then I can set it up with the Hokage. We'll do it, just tell us what we have to do. Naruto said before Hinata could voice her concerns over this. Well, the test is an old one, Mizuki explained to them. You see, if you and Sasuke had tied, it would have been given to you both as a tiebreaker, but as a teacher I can have a little leeway in this. You have to sneak into the Hokage Tower using the skill you have learned and steal an old scroll used for this exam. The scroll is pretty old since it's been used for this exam for a very long time, as this helps prepare you for a possible mission as a ninja to steal secret documents. But the scroll will be guarded, and you have to find a way to defeat the guards and take the scroll to a drop-off point, without being caught or followed. If you do, you fail the exam and marks are taken off your final grade. Now I will ask you both, are you sure you want to try for this special exam? I don't know about this, Naruto-kun, something doesn't seem right, Hinata said to him. She had never heard of this before, but then again it was possible that she couldn't have known if such a thing did exist, but it seemed kind of strange to her. Why were only her and Naruto given this? Shouldn't Sakura and Sasuke also been given the chance, since that would be more fair? Come on Hinata-chan, we could make our parents proud of us if we do this. Think of what your dad and family will think of you if you make the top kunoichi in the class. Hinata bit her lip. She would love to make her father proud of her, and his earlier reaction played in her mind, and she wanted so much for him to say how proud he was of her. She wanted it so badly that she decided to go with whatever Naruto decided to pick. If he chose to do this, then she would go with him and help him out. After all the times he helped her, it was time she did the same for him. I'll do whatever you think is best, Naruto-kun. Alright, I knew I could count on you, Hinata-chan, Naruto shouted in joy and looked at his teacher. Alright, we're in. Good. Mizuki smiled at him. Then it will start in an hour. Now let me tell you more about your exam and where you'll be placing the scroll that you get. Later. The sun had set and Naruto and Hinata were just outside of the Hokage Tower. The two had snuck all the way there, not sure what kind of guards that Mizuki would have placed in their way to stop them, so Naruto had asked Hinata to use her eyes to make sure they avoided everyone just to be sure. He was glad that she was here with him. With her he knew that they would pass this with no trouble at all. As they finally reached it, Naruto asked her if she could see inside of the tower. She nodded and scanned the place for the scroll that Mizuki had told him about. He was very detailed about it, and she eventually found what she guessed had to be it. It was a very large scroll in a room all its own that was next to the Hokage's office, but she noticed that the office wasn't empty. Naruto, the Hokage is still in there, she told him. Crap, the old man must be in on it too. He must think it's funny to let himself test us, but he made a major mistake, as I know his greatest weakness. Naruto grinned and Hinata gave him a confused look. Hinata, keep an eye on me. If you spot anyone coming my way, give one of those signals we learned in class, like a bird call or something, okay? He asked her and she nodded once he was off. It wasn't hard for Naruto to get into the Hokage's office, after all he had done it countless times to see him over the years. Even when the guards said that he was busy, Naruto found a way in. There were more ways in and out than most people knew about, and he had found all the little secret ways in. Naruto was making his way to the crawl space that was overhead the office. something he used a lot to surprise the Hokage from time to time when he wanted to drop in on him. It took some time, but he finally made it into the small crawlway. It was always dusty and lots of spider webs. He hated those things, especially when they got in his face and hair. But he silently crawled in the darkness to his location. He memorized the route by now and stopped to the small hole he made as a peephole to see what the old man was doing. Naruto was confused when he saw that he was working on paperwork instead of guarding, but he just figured that the Hokage had put this paperwork off again and was using the exam as an excuse to get caught up. Well, old man, you should have paid more attention because I'm going to give you the change to act, he thought to himself, readying the panel he was now at. With one move he threw the panel aside and jumped down. He grinned, seeing the surprised look on the Hokage's face. It was almost like he didn't expect to see him. Before the Hokage could say a word, he did a familiar sand seal, sexy jutsu. Naruto had long since known that the Hokage was a closet pervert. After all, he had the same books as his dad hidden in the lower left-hand drawer of his desk. He was in the form of that sexy teen blonde girl with the pigtails, giving him the most adorable and sexy look that he could think of. That was all it took for him to defeat the Hokage. Naruto turned back and laughed a bit, seeing the old man on his back twitching with the twin blood trails from his nose. Okay, first take out the guard and now for the scroll. We're so going to pass this exam, Naruto said before going into the room where Hinata had seen the scroll. It was 15 minutes later that someone finally showed up to the Hokage's office, and that was none other than Kakashi. He had been late showing up for Naruto's big day, which he knew that his son would never let him live down or forget, but at any rate he was just going to bribe him with new lessons for being late. He had been so caught up at the memorial stone that he had lost track of time and rushed over to find that Naruto wasn't at the school. He spent the last few hours looking all over the place. He tried home first, then the park, then he rushed over to the ramen stand, but they hadn't seen him either. He even tried the top of the Hokage monument. Naruto didn't think that he didn't know that it was one of his son's favorite spots when he wanted to be alone, but Kakashi knew but let him be when he went there usually. But he wasn't there either. It was at this point that he was really starting to worry where his son might be. He tried thinking of any other place that he might go and decided that if he wasn't with the Hokage he would try the Hyuga compound and see if he was with Hinata, then he would see if Guy or Anko knew where he might be as well. When he got to the tower he noticed that there was a lot of activity going on. He was curious what was going on, but his son came first. When he got into the office he was surprised to see the Hokage at his desk wiping what looked like blood from his desk. The Hokage looked up at him with a serious look on his face. Kakashi, we have some trouble, he said to the masked ninja. Already he had a bad feeling about what this trouble might be. Just tell me my son isn't involved. I'm sorry, but Naruto came in here and surprised me with, well, never mind what he surprised me with. The Hokage blushed at the thought of that and made a mental note as to what the hell Kakashi was teaching his son to come up with something like that. He shook the thoughts away to get to the matter at hand. At any rate he managed to steal the forbidden scroll and I'm already organizing a search party for him. He what? Kakashi's single eye widened in shock. He wasn't sure what surprised him more. That Naruto got past the Hokage that he stole that scroll or even knew that it existed. He was sure that he never once mentioned that scroll, and it's not like it's taught in school, and he knew that other ninjas that Naruto knew would never say something about that with a child in the room. It didn't make sense for Naruto to steal that scroll, and something was nagging him about this, and if a ninja got to trust one thing it was his gut feelings. I'll look for him, after all I know him best and might be able to find out where he is, Kakashi said to him. Very well, but you honestly think the others won't be able to find him? The Hokage asked. Kakashi I smiled under his mask. Have you forgotten who has been giving him lessons all his life, and let's not forget how long it took for him to be caught after painting the monument. I swear the Jonin and Chunins are still sore that they couldn't catch a 13-year-old boy that wasn't even out of the academy yet. Although he did neglect to mention that Naruto knew all the best Jonin and a few special Jonin and they liked him too much to really put some heart into the chase, but the point was still made. He even heard a couple had quite Anbu in order to focus more on their training since even they had trouble catching him. The Hokage nodded his head as Kakashi made his leave. Now outside he started to look around for any signs that Naruto might have left, but it seemed that he trained Naruto too well in stealth and escape and evade procedures. He knew that time wasn't on his side since that scroll held a lot of dangerous techniques and he didn't want to think what could happen if Naruto tried to read one and then tried it. Because he knew that Naruto wouldn't be able to resist learning at least one move, so he pulled out a kunai and made a small cut on his hand. He used the familiar hand seals and summoned his dogs, all of them that is. Hey Kakashi, what's the trouble? Pakken asked his master, looking up at the man. In short, I need you all to track Naruto down for me, he told his lead dog. Pakken winced, knowing that Naruto was in trouble yet again. He swore the kid was always getting into something, it seemed. Do I want to know what he did this time? No time, just find him and get me to him as fast as you can. He could be in some serious trouble if we don't get to him in time, Kakashi said in a worried tone. The dogs all nodded their heads and ran off to find Naruto's scent. They dogs all liked Naruto, as he had always treated them well, and if he was in trouble they would try to find him as quickly as he could. Kakashi watched them run off, sniffing for any trace of him from around the tower, and he hoped they would find something soon. He looked to the village and he had to wonder just where his son was and what was he thinking, and he really hoped he wasn't doing something stupid like reading that scroll. In the woods that surrounded the village, Naruto and Hinata were at a small clearing with a small shed. Hinata was with him, looking nervous as Naruto was on the grass trying to read the large scroll by moonlight. He had been curious as to what the scroll had in it, and when he pulled it open he was surprised to see a list of jutsus and other techniques. Naruto thought it was some type of teaching scroll that maybe you get to learn something from it if you manage to take it or something like that. Hinata wasn't so sure. The moves that Naruto listed off, she wasn't familiar with most of them, and a few she thought she noticed only high-ranking ninjas did, at least higher than a genin was supposed to know. Hey Hinata-chan, check this out, it's got the shadow clone jutsu in here too. Naruto pointed to the same technique his father taught him. The what? Hinata took a closer look. It looked like a regular clone technique but with a different hand seal at the end of it. Yeah, my dad taught me it so I could pass. He said I can't make normal clones, but shadow clones are easy. They're all solid and stuff too, so they can actually hit your enemy with them. There is supposed to be more, but my dad said he would tell the whole thing after I passed, Naruto explained to his friend. Hinata took a closer look at the instructions as she read on out loud. It was one of the few times she could speak without stuttering when she was reading something. The shadow clone jutsu is a jonin level technique and should not be taught until then, because the level of chakra needed to use it safely could seriously harm or kill a person with too little chakra. She looked at Naruto worried, but he just brushed it off. Or what do they know, I can do it just fine. She read on, the clones when dispelled also send the original person all of their memories and experiences. This makes them perfect for spying, as any information they have will be sent back to the original. What? I didn't notice that when I used it. Naruto looked closer at the fine print and tried to remember all the training he did with the clones. He had done it so many times that he just thought that the memories he had were just from all his tries, but actually looking back and thinking hard about it he realized that the scroll was right. Oh, I can't believe I didn't notice that before. I'm such an idiot, he yelled out, grabbing his head. Hinata felt a little sorry for him but honestly never knew what to say in these moments. But then Naruto was back to reading the scroll again, trying to find something he could use. And Naruto-kun, what are you looking for? I'm looking for a new kick-ass jutsu that I can try out in this thing. Hey, maybe there is something for you to use as well. I bet it would impress your dad if you could master something from this as well too. Naruto said brightly, and Hinata thought about it. Would her father be proud of something like that? She honestly thought that he might if she could learn an advanced move all on her own, so against her better judgment she decided to look with Naruto as well. Naruto had been poring over the scroll and he just couldn't decide on what to try and learn. There were so many cool things that he never even heard of. There were elemental attacks, defensive jutsus, genjutsus, but since he sucked at those he just skipped them entirely. He was like a kid in a candy store and he just wanted to learn them all if he could. Hinata was looking with him, but something was wrong to her. All these moves were way too advanced for them, so why was the test to take this scroll if it held such dangerous looking techniques? Everyone had some type of warning to it and she was starting to worry that maybe they took the wrong one. Man, Hinata-chan, this is awesome, which one should we try for? He asked her. I don't know, I mean these look a little too dangerous. He just shrugged. Hey, the shadow clone is in here and I use that, so how bad could it be? Oh cool, something with lightning, that should be great. WW, wasn't your affinity wind? Naruto looked at her a little confused as to what she meant. You remember WW when Iruka-sensei tested us for affinities? The paper that changed W when we touched it. Naruto thought hard, but he honestly had been thinking about something else. He kind of remembered a paper being passed around, but he was too busy making doodles in his notes of him beating up Sasuke to pay much attention. Hinata saw this and sweat dropped that he could forget his own elemental affinity. She herself learned that hers was water, but Hyuga's didn't use much jutsus in battle and mainly used the gentle fist style a lot. And Naruto-kun, yours was wind, remember? He just shrugged. Sorry, but if you say so then let me see. Oh, here's a cool one, vortex fist. No, don't. Hinata said, stopping him from making the hand seals. Look at the warning. Naruto looked, and reading it over, the jutsu was used to make a condensed wind in your fist. Then with a punching motion you sent out a blast of powerful wind that would rip to shreds anything in its path. The downside was that it could also rip apart the user's hand and arm if they weren't careful, and in bold it said that only seasoned jonin should even attempt it. Naruto looked at his hand, and even though he had to, he wasn't sure he wanted his arm ripped off. Man, this sucks. What can I do then? He asked as he looked around some more, and then his eye caught something. What's this? Exploding shadow clones. This looked like it would work for him, and he read the name, and it was credited to have been made by an Itachi Uchiha. Naruto thought back, and he wasn't sure if he remembered someone like that or not. It sounded very familiar to him for some reason, but he just shrugged. Sasuke was the only one left now, but he wouldn't ask him if he knew the guy. Most likely it was just some clan member that he wouldn't have known anyway. Naruto looked at it, but it was kind of complicated, so he asked Hinata for help. It would be later when Mizuki eventually showed up and put on his smile again as he came to the two children. Well, I'm most impressed you two managed to do it. Your parents will be very proud of you too. Mizuki lied to them. Yeah, I knew it. It wasn't hard at all. They barely even tried to stop us anyway. Naruto grinned and scratched the back of his head. Hinata stepped forward looking a little worried. Mizuki-sensei, I think we took the wrong scroll. Oh, and what is that? He asked her. She fiddled with her fingers as Naruto rolled it up. It's just that, what's in it is way too advanced for Genins. Why would that be the scroll for the test when any Genin that took it could do a lot of harm with it? Mizuki shouldn't have been surprised that Hinata had figured out something was wrong, but it didn't matter. He was going to kill the kids anyway, so it hardly mattered to him. He smiled at her to reassure her and knelt down to her height. It's okay, Hinata, I'm sure that everything is okay. Naruto, why don't you hand me that scroll now? Oh, okay, sure thing. Naruto picked up the large scroll. Wait, maybe we should be the ones to take it back after all. We took it, Hinata said to them both. She wasn't sure, but something about all of this was wrong. It's something inside was screaming it at her. She didn't know why, but she felt that the scroll had to be taken back and they had to be sure of it. From what she read, it was too dangerous to be out in the open like this. It held a lot of the villagers' Eustace, and some looked as though they were ones that the village only had as well. Mizuki smirked at her. I should have guessed you might have been a problem. Naruto is too stupid to think things through, but I figured since you're such a weak little girl you wouldn't have said anything. Both kids looked as though they had been slapped in the face by his words as his face shifted from the kind teacher to that of a darker look. He quickly grabbed Hinata and turned her around and gripped her throat with his free hand. Hinata-chan. Naruto called out. Move and she dies, brat, Mizuki told him harshly. What's going on, Mizuki-sensei? You really aren't all that bright, are you? He smirked at the boy. That scroll is the forbidden scroll. I had you steal it before I left this stupid village behind so I could finally get what I deserved all these years. I hated teaching at that school while my talents were wasted, but because I'm not from some elitist clan or a noble family or some other junk like that, I was held back. Well, no more. Now I get what's coming to me, and you will give me that scroll. Naruto gritted his teeth seeing Hinata's hands going to her throat for air. He couldn't believe that Mizuki had betrayed and used them like this. He thought he had known him. He had always seemed so nice, but he had used them to steal from the old man, and because he had dragged in Hinata into this, she was in trouble, all because of his stupid pride. He closed his eyes and picked up the scroll, wondering what to do, and then he thought of something his father told him many times in their training. Naruto, remember this, a ninja that breaks the rules is trash, but a ninja that turns their backs on their friends is worse than trash. I remember, Dad, Naruto thought to himself and looked at Hinata's pained face as she struggled for air. It was all his fault and he wouldn't let Hinata get hurt because of his stupidity. He angrily looked at Mizuki and tossed the scroll by his former teacher, glaring at him as it landed a few feet from the adult. There, now let her go, Naruto said to him. Mizuki just smirked at the boy and with his hand tightened his hold on Hinata's neck even more. She was frantically trying to get his hand off as she couldn't breathe anymore. Naruto saw her face changing color and saw her eyes widen in fear and pleading for him to help her. What are you doing? Stop it, you're going to kill her, I gave you the stupid scroll. Naruto shouted at him. He just laughed in response. Stupid brat, you really think I'll let you two live? You can tell them exactly who took the scroll, and by the time they find your bodies and figure out that I'm no longer in the village, you'll be long gone by then. You should have known better, but I guess it won't be all bad after all. There are people that would celebrate your death. Naruto had always known that some people hated him. He never knew why. He just figured that maybe they just hated his family after all he had heard from his dad, how his grandfather had killed himself after being a disgrace and all, but he was more worried about Hinata as she looked as though she had passed out by now. Do you want to know the real reason why so many hate you and why people have tried to kill you, even like those two ninjas or those accidents that happen to you from time to time? Mizuki grinned, seeing the boy's look made this all too sweet for him. You remember the lessons on the demon fox that came and killed so many of our villagers? The QB, the nine-tailed fox, well, it was said that the fourth Hokage killed it, but it turns out that was all a lie. You see, he couldn't kill it but instead sealed it into a boy, a baby born on October 10th. Naruto's eyes widened as he felt a sliver of fear and dread enter his heart at his words, because that was the day he was born. You were that boy? You are the nine-tailed fox in a human form. Mizuki laughed, seeing the boy's eyes, and he had to admit it was nice to take the demon boy down a bit, and he decided to twist the knife a bit more. If you don't believe me, how do you think you survived the kunai to the chest when you saved this girl all those years ago? How do you think you even managed to defeat a ninja at that age? You used the power of the demon inside of you, that's how. The village just should have killed you and be done with it, but no, that stupid fool the third thought otherwise, and then Kakashi of all people had to take you in as his own son. Naruto felt like he had just been kicked in the chest. He knew that he didn't look like his father, but he just figured that he got his looks from his mother, but every time he had asked about that, his dad just changed the subject or said that it was too painful to talk about and he would tell him when he was older. But he had always thought that his father was Kakashi Hatake, and now to learn that his father had been lying to him his entire life, he felt his world caving in. First he found out about a demon inside of him, that he wasn't really a Hatake, and now Hinata would get killed because of him. It was that last thought that focused his mind, seeing Hinata's limp form, and all his pain he focused on the sole task of not letting her down anymore. He wouldn't let her die, and he promised himself that he would protect his friends. More determined than ever, Naruto faced Mizuki. Let her go now, or I swear I'll kill you. Mizuki just smirked as he threw Hinata's body aside and reached behind him to pull out one of the large shurikens that was attached to his back. He'd deal with the boy first, then he could deal with the girl, since she wouldn't be a problem. Naruto saw this and gritted his teeth as he got himself ready. He had to push everything he heard to the back of his mind and focus on beating him. Naruto formed a few hand seals, and suddenly there were several dozen Narutos now in the forest. Ha! I like to see you beat us all. Naruto shouted at him. That might have caught me off guard if I didn't already know you could do that, Mizuki said as they clones threw their weapons at him. They hit, but he transformed into a log. With the substitution done, he appeared again out of nowhere, that threw his large shuriken weapon into the mass of clones. He took many of them down with one move and landed in the three tops, pulling out the last one he had to his back. Pathetic, you can't beat someone with the same trick, brat. That's why I learned something new, Naruto said, making more clones as they all charged Mizuki. He only threw the weapon at them, cutting them all down to pieces. He jumped down to the Naruto left and grabbed the boy by the throat and held a kunai to his neck. You should have run, boy, and what did I say about the same old trick? Naruto only gave a small laugh. I guess I forgot to say the new move, huh? Exploding. Shadow Clone Jutsu. With that, Naruto suddenly blew up, sending the Chunin back into a tree with small burns and in a lot of pain. He held a hand to his face, feeling the pain of the explosive damage to it and to his body. He was trying to think what had happened when he heard a noise and saw Naruto walking out of the woods. Naruto calmly walked over to him, thankful that his plan had worked. While Mizuki had been focused on the clones, they covered him long enough to make a special exploding one, and with a leftover clone from the first wave he pulled his own substitution jutsu with that clone. It had been something he had been working on for his dad for the next spar, but it seemed that it worked. Now he just walked over to the man who was glaring angrily at him. Mizuki tried to speak, but he couldn't get any words out. He thought that Naruto was saying something, but he couldn't hear with the ringing in his ears. That was when he passed out from the pain. Naruto quickly ran to Hinata and checked her out. He held her in his arms and checked her breathing. She signed hearing her soft breath and he felt like crying at that moment. From nearly losing his best friend to the truth of his life, he just didn't know what to think or feel at the moment. He was totally lost and he didn't even know what to do next. He just sat there holding her close to his chest. It was a bit later when Kakashi had come to the scene. One of his dogs had been taking him in the general direction, and when he heard the explosion he came onto the scene with Naruto holding Hinata and Mizuki looking pretty bad on the floor. Kakashi walked over to Naruto and knelt down to him. Naruto, what happened here? He didn't get a response and that was worrying. Son, please talk to me. He told me, Naruto said and looked up at him with tears in his eyes. Why didn't you ever tell me? Why didn't you ever tell me about the fox or that I'm not your real son? Kakashi knew that he needed to have a talk with Naruto. It was obvious that his son had taken the news pretty hard and he had been meaning to tell him, but he wanted to do so when the time was right, but it looked like fate and a certain Chunin had ruined that. Hatake home. Kakashi watched as Naruto walked silently to the couch. They had dropped off Hinata home on his son's insistence, but he had been unusually quiet the entire time, like he was now. When Hinata woke up, she had told Kakashi what had really happened, and he in turn had told the Hokage. Mizuki would be under guard at the hospital until he was well enough for Ibiki to get to work on him. Kakashi was worried for Naruto as he looked so lost the entire time, and now they were in his room sitting on his son's bed. The quiet was like nails on a blackboard to Kakashi, but he sat down next to him and waited for Naruto to make the first move. He had to wait for a bit until Naruto seemed to come around long enough to start asking questions. Is it true? Was what he said about me being a demon and you're not my father true? He asked, choking back a sob. Well, yes and no. Kakashi said gently and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Listen to me, you are not the demon. You're a hero, Naruto, because you keep the demon from harming anyone else. You're the jailer, not the prisoner inside of you. So I don't want you to ever think of yourself as a demon, because there are those that know the truth and see you as the one that keeps us all safe. Naruto felt a bit better hearing that he wasn't a demon, but the fact he had something that terrible locked up inside of him wasn't something that he wanted to deal with. It was scary to think of that creature living inside of him all this time. Then he looked at Kakashi and pulled down his mask to look at the man who he had been his father. And, you're not my dad? He asked, his eyes filled with hurt at that. Kakashi in a rare moment pulled his own mask down, as it was a way for them to know when they were being totally truthful with each other, something to show that there were no secrets in that moment. He sighed and looked at the boy who looked so much like Minato. It was scary. I'm not your biological father, no. I took you in and raised you as my own because I owed it to him to do it. He asked me to protect you and I will do that until the day I died. Naruto looked down a moment hearing that. But, I soon saw you less as just a responsibility but more as family. Naruto, you are the only family I have in this world and I wouldn't trade you away for anything. In a time in my life where I had lost everyone important to me, you gave me something to help fill in that void and to keep me from a lost and lonely existence. I love you like you were my own son and I never want you to forget that. Naruto was at a loss for words as he looked up at him, and before he knew it he launched himself into a hug with the man. Kakashi smiled and gave him an one-arm hug back, rubbing his back. He knew that this all would be difficult to him. They stayed like that for a moment until Naruto pulled himself away, wiping his eyes with his sleeve. Who were my parents if, he let the end hang there, he was going to say, if you're not my dad, but after everything that seemed cruel to say. Kakashi knew what he had meant to say but was thankful he didn't finish. He got up and Naruto watched him leave. He came back later carrying a small box with him and sat back down. Naruto, I want you to know that you can't tell anyone who they are, at least not yet. Your father made a lot of enemies and if they ever found out that he was your father they would come after you and you're not ready yet to face that. Do you understand? Naruto nodded his head. Kakashi opened the lid and pulled out several old pictures. One was of him when he was a kid with his team and Minato. He smiled seeing Rin and Obito's faces in the picture. They had been so young back then. He handed the picture to Naruto and picked up one of Minato Namika's with a pregnant Kushina Uzumaki. Both of them were holding each other and smiling as he gave Naruto the photo. Naruto looked at them and they seemed so happy, and looking at the tall blonde man he couldn't help but see the resemblance. It was so weird for him to see these two as his parents. But he couldn't deny that he looked so much like the fourth Hokage, although with his mask he guessed not many would suspect that. He looked at the photo of Kakashi as a boy. So he was your sensei? Kakashi nodded. He was like a father figure to me after my own had died. The night he died he left several things. One of them was a note to me to take care of you, and I guess this is for you too when you were old enough. Naruto was handed a small letter envelope that looked very old. He gently opened it up and took out an old piece of paper. Naruto, I know that this is a long time coming and you'll have grown up so much by the time you read this. But I needed to give you some last words that I wanted you to have. I'm sorry this letter isn't longer. There is so much that I wanted to tell you and so much that I wish I could have done with you, but the QB is too close and I have to go soon. By the time you read this I guess I'll have been dead for a long time. I wish I could have watched you grow up with my wife, but it seems life doesn't go as you wish it to. I hope you have had a good life with lots of love, my son, because we both loved you so much even before you were born. Your mother would sing to you all the time when she was pregnant with you and always talked about all the things she wanted to teach you. I wish she could have, but she died fighting to give birth to you. She wanted you to live even at the cost of her life, and that's why I chose you as well. By now I guess you know what I had to do, and I'm sorry I had to place this burden on you, but there wasn't another way. A newborn was needed since only that would survive and hold the demon, and I couldn't ask anyone else to do this if I wasn't. I designed the seal to allow the demon's chakra to merge with yours over time. It's my hope this will give you a lot of extra power. It is also my hope that you are seen as the hero of the village, as was my wish. I asked Kakashi Hatake to look after you. I trust him more than anything to take care of our son. Naruto, know this. You are a hero and your parents loved you more than life itself, so please remember this, my son, and I know you will do us proud. Minato. Naruto felt the sting of tears on his eyes again after reading it. He didn't know what to say to that. He had learned so much about his life in one night that it was just too much to take all at once. He would need time to digest this all, but the thought that his birth parents had loved him so much and that he wasn't the demon but the one holding it back gave him a sense of strength. And his dream of becoming Hokage took on a new determination as well. His biological father had placed a lot of trust in him and he would do him proud. He would become Hokage as well, just as he did, and protect this village too. Can I keep these? Naruto asked Kakashi. Only if you keep them safe and out of sight for now, he told him, and Naruto nodded his head. Kakashi was about to leave when Naruto spoke up again. You know, they may have been my birth parents and he may be my father, but I don't know him. Naruto said softly and then looked up at Kakashi. He was never there for me when I was scared or hurt or lonely. He never made me laugh or took me out for ramen or trained me. He never told me stories when I was little or took me to the park to play. Yeah, he was my father. But you're my dad. You always have been and you'll always be my dad no matter what. Kakashi smiled as he ruffled Naruto's hair and the young boy grinned up at him. I'm glad, because even in all the ways that matter you are my son. Thanks, Dad, Naruto said softly. Well, it's been a long night and you got a big day coming up, remember? Kakashi said, and Naruto knew what he meant. In a couple of days they would put him on a team. He couldn't wait for it, but he was also dead tired. He could see Hinata tomorrow and check in on her as well. He hoped that she was okay. He put the letter and photo back into the box and placed it on a shelf in his room as he got ready for bed. Kakashi watched him by the door and gave a soft smile. He knew that Naruto was keeping things inside. He always did that to prevent others from worrying. He just hoped that he would be okay. This was a lot to put on his shoulders. He was a strong boy, but even the strongest blades can break eventually. He walked off hoping that Naruto would eventually be okay and hoping that Ibiki would have a lot of fun with Mizuki and wondering if the man would let him join in at one point. After all, the man had tried to kill his son and frame him for a theft as well. That will be it for this video. If you want more, comment down below, like, subscribe. And see you guys later.